Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming. We are here this morning to have a conversation around the assessment of our president. And I wanted to just give you a brief overview about the process, why we're doing this, and then I'm going to introduce Sally Mason, who's going to facilitate the conversation today. So first of all, we are engaging in a review of President LeBlanc 2 years, almost 2 years into his presidency, really primarily to give him feedback from us in the community about how things are going, things that we like, things we might not like, some things that we would want him to tackle. So really this is a process of him engaging all of us and in really getting feedback about his presidency and using that to really work on what he's going to do in the future. So it's really cast in a positive light about really understanding from all of you and from everyone who he engages with some feedback about things that we need to tackle. This process is a best practice. We have actually brought on AGB, and I'll introduce Sally in a second from AGB, who does this really as a service to a number of higher education institutions. They do it pretty frequently. It is also something that will help us really understand how we chart the future. These reviews will take place really on an every 2-year basis. So that we can understand how the president and how the university is progressing against all of this. These forums are intended to give everybody an opportunity to give us feedback. I just wanted to give you two things about this particular forum that are important. One is we have a live audience as well, so they have the ability to submit questions and comments. Toward the end, we'll see if there are any questions from the live audience online that we can answer as well. And we will be collecting all the feedback that you give us today for Dr. Mason as she spends this week kind of gathering information around the process. So that's basically what we're going to do this morning. We have 1 hour, so I am going to regulate time allocation if it is necessary, and I just don't want anybody to be offended. If there are things that are longer than we have time for today, Jessica Polk from the board office is here, and she's happy to collect any information from you that you'd like to add to the record. So I think it's important that everybody understands we're here to hear you, but we want to make sure that we can hear from everybody. So let me introduce Dr. Sally Mason. Dr. Mason is President Emerita of the University of Iowa. She served as the institution's 20th president from 2007 through 2015. At Iowa, Dr. Mason oversaw a historic era of campus transformation, including rebuilding in the wake of a historic 2008 flood, especially the renewal of an arts campus for the 21st century, construction state-of-the-art children's hospital, and biomedical discovery research center, and the first new residence hall since 1968. Trained as a cell developmental biologist, Dr. Mason received her BA in zoology from the University of Kentucky, her MS from Purdue University, and her PhD in cellular, molecular, and developmental biology from the University of Arizona. She received honorary doctorates from the University of Kentucky and the University of Notre Dame. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sally Mason. Sally?
Thanks. Thank you all for coming out today. I know days are always very busy, especially for faculty and others who work around the university. There is no time off this time of year. You're getting close to wrapping up another academic year, so congratulations. This is what retired presidents do. We go out and we try to help other institutions do the best jobs that they possibly can. This is an extraordinary time, obviously, at George Washington University. You've got a new president. He is very interested in staying well connected to the campus and in learning as he goes along what the needs of the various groups on the campus are. So as Nelson said, this is a process. I wish more institutions would do this on a regular basis. And Nelson, as the board chair, I think should be applauded for adopting best practices and understanding how important a presidential review can be, especially early in the tenure of a president, as in this particular case, as he is getting used to being on the new campus and understanding what the challenges on this campus are going to be. I have a whole series of questions that I am asking individuals when I have the opportunity. And in open forum sessions, what I'd like to do is sort of just lay the basis for the questions out there and then see what your comments might be. Some of them hopefully will pertain directly to some of the topics that I mentioned, but you may have some other thoughts that you want to introduce into the conversation as well. Please feel free to share those comments and thoughts with us. And if you're shy and you don't want to speak out open in the group, there's email. There will be a number of ways in which you can get feedback to myself. And I have a colleague with me, Lynn Somerville from AGB, who is helping me with this process too. In fact, she's down there taking notes so I can listen.
Just to add one point, we'll bring a mic to you, so raise your hand if you'd like to say something, and a mic will come over so everybody can hear your comment. Thanks.
And I'll warn you, unless Nelson's eyes are better than mine, the lights are so bright on us that it's hard for me to see the audience. So I can see some of you very well, but others of you not at all. So do make yourself known so we can get your comments recorded here. Let me just give you the broad categories under which I'm asking questions. The first category is something that I call organizational management, and it has to do with the president and his leadership team. Is he making changes to the leadership team? Is it obvious that he's making changes to the leadership team? Does he have the right people in place to be helping him manage the university going forward? And is he able to create a sense of urgency and drive among his team that filters down through the university and gets to the root of the things that need to be done here at GW? Secondarily is what I call strategic leadership, and that has to do with strategic planning, strategic initiatives, and I know in President LeBlanc's case, he very quickly, I think, put together some strategic initiatives. If you're familiar with those and you've got comments regarding the appropriateness of those strategic initiatives or how they're progressing and proceeding, we would love to hear about that. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask about financial sustainability. Many institutions across the country today are struggling with their business models. How is the business model at George Washington University to the extent that you might be familiar with it? Is the president able to communicate the financial condition of the university well to all of the constituents out there? And are you feeling comfortable that GW is well positioned for the future financially? So if you've got thoughts on that, we would love to hear them. The fourth topic is fundraising and communications. Now, that seems like an odd combination, but it really gets to the root of how well does the president communicate with various constituents. I'm particularly interested in his ability to raise funds. There's no president today who isn't given a mandate by his or her board that fundraising is important for the institution. And I know that GW has some traditions in this area, but they're growing traditions in the philanthropy area. And to the extent that you might have some insight into how this is going or how it should go in the future, again, we'd like to hear about that. A big part of GW's identity is medicine. And medicine is complicated at a place like George Washington University. Some of you may have very direct knowledge of medicine here at GW. Some may not. For those of you who do, we'd love to hear about whether you feel the president is understanding the operation of medicine here and understands what the future of medicine looks like and what GW's role in that future might be. Something that you may or may not see on a regular basis is how the president interacts with his board. This is his board president right here, and nominally his boss. So it's important, obviously, for presidents to have good working relationships, good communication with their board. And if you've got any insight into that, or any advice that you might want to give the president regarding board relations, this is a good opportunity to share that with him. And then finally, a category that's kind of a broad catch-all that I call innovation and change. Universities are constantly evolving. They're undergoing change all the time, although it isn't necessarily always obvious. When a new president comes to a university, the opportunities to innovate and to institute change are probably no better than they are right now in the history of this president's tenure. So to what extent are you feeling that change is afoot? And to what extent do you feel that change needs to be happening or perhaps doesn't need to be happening on the GW campus? So your thoughts on any or all of those topics would be most appreciated. I don't want to use too much time talking to you. I would like to hear from you. So now's the chance to raise your hand and we'll get the microphone to you for comments. Great, we've got a shy group. I'm going to presume that all of you came because you had something to say. There.
Good morning. I am a staff member here, Assistant Vice President for Ethics, Compliance, and Privacy.
Okay.
But I'm speaking in my role as a parent of a senior in high school who is currently in evaluation of her next place of institution. And GW is on her list. She's been accepted, which I'm thrilled about. She's also been accepted to several other, but two that she's thinking about of our peer groups, Tulane and Northeastern. And just a comment on my experience as a parent going through the process. GW is on the last of the list for parent interaction in our in my experience. And so I would just ask the president to really look at how our institution is being portrayed in that process. I'm happy to give some more.
So that's in the admissions process.
It's in the prospective family, prospective student process.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I just want to add something. The board had recognized there was some challenges around enrollment and just broadly looking at all the different issues there. So the board actually established a committee on enrollment this year, and they'll continue working next year. And we have heard that same feedback, Dorinda, from others that we need to be better at that.
Yeah.
So it's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Other thoughts, comments, anything that would be, this is your chance to offer the new president advice. Now, you might think that he's not going to take advice from me. That's not my experience. My interactions with Tom suggest that he's very open and interested in having this kind of advice. So, yep, Steve, up front here.
Thank you. Steve Cubison. I'm part of the Office of Technology Commercialization. So I've been here for a little over 6 years, and I will say that I really welcome the new president coming in. I think it's a very positive change. But GW is extremely conservative. I worked with 2 other universities, and I studied at 2 other institutions. And GW is very conservative. And he is making some change, but I think there's tremendous potential at GW because of its location here in the Capitol. And I get involved with a lot of research, and there's more research in this geographic area than anywhere in the world, and we're still sort of small. I was at Hopkins before. It is a huge hospital. We have a small hospital here, which is a problem. And I think we need to look at partnering with others in the area, in research and in medicine would be one of my suggestions. And also, get GW out of this bureaucracy, because I really think that's what holds things back.
Yeah, great. Okay, good comments. Thank you. Full disclosure, Steve and I have worked together on review panels for the AAAS over the years, so I wasn't surprised to see him here this morning. Yeah. Other thoughts or comments? Yeah, please.
Good morning. My name is Tamara Washington, and I serve as the Victim Services Specialist under the Division of Safety and Security. How are you doing today?
We're good.
Good,
Yeah.
good. So I want to hone in on one of the initiatives. So one of the President's initiatives is student experience, and under there you have safety and well-being. I'm the only victim advocate on the campus of 20,000 plus students. I serve faculty, staff, and student survivors of crime, any crime, including Title IX, robbery, theft. I'm also one of the confidential resources on campus outside of the Colonial Health Center. And my capacity to be able to provide my resources is absolutely not great. If we're comparing advocacy to other campuses, I benchmarked about 26 schools, and out of 26 schools, 19 have 2 or more advocates on their campus with the same amount of student population, a similar student population. And so as I'm looking at the website and I'm looking at some of the things and accomplishments that are on there under safety and well-being, it really just doesn't highlight the advocacy and support mechanism. And so I really would encourage the president to look into more about investing into human resources, because as you know, I'm spending more time in the office with students. That's less time programming, less time being able to let people know I'm here. And so please bring that to him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. There was a hand up right here. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Cara Pompanio. I'm in the development office for Columbian College of Arts and Sciences. So I'm curious about if the president is engaging with the business community in the DC area, and he probably is, and maybe I just don't know about it, but I think that DC is
As the Victim Services Specialist under the Division of Safety and Security. How are you doing today?
We're good.
Good,
Yeah.
good. So I want to hone in on one of the initiatives. So one,
and be a member of, the Economic Club and the Federal City Council, Board of Trade, all of those types of organizations. Because I think if he can build relationships with business leaders, it will help the university, and it doesn't matter. And I'm not even talking about in terms of fundraising. I'm just talking about in terms of visibility and in terms of positioning GW as a player in the local scene.
That's great advice, and I suspect there's quite a bit of that going on, but we will emphasize that you all would like to see even more.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're over the shyness, so yeah. Anyone else? You all are going to submit written comments, right? You're going to let me know in writing what you're thinking. Believe me, I realize it can be very intimidating. You ought to sit up on this side if you think it's a little strange down there.
So Sally, this is was targeted at staff.
Staff, right.
So is there anything about being on the staff here? I know that we recently did a culture survey with the Disney Institute. Any things that you all are seeing from your vantage point at the staff that you'd like the president to know or you'd like us to do differently?
some of us realize how important staff are at the university, and I'm certain the president does. The institutions don't run well without good staff and committed people that are doing in many cases, hard jobs behind the scenes. So your voice is very important. There's a reason why I insisted that we have these kinds of open forums, so that your voice would be part of this process. I think they're all feeling pretty well served.
Has to be something.
Yeah. Steve? Oh, okay, we'll go to the back and then we'll come back up front. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Wes, and I'm a recent new staff member.
Okay.
I came from I worked at previously a small university. And so one of the things that I've noticed by being a new staff member here is when I reach out to other departments, people are very warm and positive and willing to offer help and advice. So that's really great from a new staff perspective when I'm trying to figure out how things work. People are like, yeah, not a problem, I can help you. So that's one of the things that I actually enjoy on this campus, is how friendly they are from staff to staff on a peer level.
Immediately for the purposes of either change or improvement or whatever it might be. And that doesn't mean that the traditional strengths and the things that you're so well known for should go by the wayside by any means. And it's sometimes very easy to lose sight of that.
And I'll just add gently that sometimes being strategic is not that fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I was really pleased to learn that GW had done a culture assessment. And you have a baseline now, and you have a baseline with this new president coming in, so that a few years from now, when another survey is done, you can see where progress has been made, or in some cases hasn't been made, or where you're going to need to focus next. We didn't collude or collaborate on this. There's a word that pops up a lot these days. But I used Disney when I first got to the University of Iowa as their president, and we used it in our hospital, in our medical operation, because we had a hospital, very high functioning, very good, great doctors and nurses and staff, but they didn't have much of a culture of service. It wasn't really about service in the patients, and we thought we really needed to spend some time thinking more about that and improving the patient experience. What a difference it makes. So I was glad to hear that you're taking your lessons from the Disney Corporation too. If you've ever been to one of their theme parks, nobody does it better than they do. Although I don't like waiting in lines.
You can buy a special ticket and get out of those.
Yeah, I know. So I learned. Yeah. Yes.
Good morning. Thank you for hosting this forum. My name is Danita Acker, and I am speaking in the capacity of both an MBA student and a staff member here at the university. And my question is really about alignment between the university's business model and our strategic initiatives. If it's more a request, if there's more of an understanding about what is our business model and how does it respond to current trends in the industry as it relates to higher education and the marketplace, and then also how does that align with our strategic initiatives, because your business model really communicates your value and sets the tone. So I'm just curious if we can hear more about the business model, and maybe if there is communication about it, I may have missed it, but that's something I'm really curious about from an operational perspective.
Okay.
So let's take that in two parts, make sure that we give the president feedback about giving people more insight into the business model. But I will say from the board's perspective that we continue to see forecasts of challenges for higher education in the next decade. It's pretty easy to go find all the 8-year-olds and pretty easy to assume that in 10 years they'll be 18 and that some of those will go to college, and understanding the demographics of that group. So a lot of our efforts around diversity and inclusion are not just because we're nice people, they're because we're going to be in a world where that needs to be the environment that we create for the students that come here, because that's who they are. The economics of those families are very different than even the ones today. So we've thought kind of broadly about what's happening. Now, you don't want to kind of have some doomsday scenario in which you're going to operate, because for a lot of higher ed, it's not a rosy picture going forward. But and for us, it's actually, and I'll just kind of cite, so S&P rates all the bonds in the marketplace. Their outlook on higher ed is negative. I don't know if they have double negative, but negative's bad. On GW, it's we're actually a double A credit, so it's almost as positive as it can get. So in an industry that's really going to struggle, and they're looking at the future of those institutions, we're rated by those same people very highly. So I think we can feel good about where we are, but we still need to be, I think, really aware of how our business model intersects with our strategy going forward, and how that intersects with the market that we serve.
You know, the national meetings these days, every one of them spend a lot of time talking about the landscape of higher education and how it's changing. Nelson's absolutely right. I know a lot of the information he gets filters through the organization that I actually work for now, which is AGB, and they really do a good job of sort of painting the broad picture of what's out there. Higher education has probably never gone through the sorting out period that it's going through right now. In fact, it had been in growth mode for so long that we don't know what contraction mode looks like, so it's all strange and new to us. There is a sorting out going on. A lot of smaller, many private, some for-profit institutions are struggling. A lot of them are closing or merging or doing things that were unthinkable or even unheard of in higher education. GW is not in that group, and you're in a unique location. That doesn't mean you don't have challenges. And your points are well taken. I know your president is, attends lots of these kinds of meetings, hears all kinds of things that are out there, and between his board and the people that he interacts with on a daily basis, he needs to be getting the best information he can to be sure that the decisions that are being made for the future of GW and what this business model is going to look like in the future are the right ones. So again, points well taken. Thank you. Other comments? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Amy Stearns, and I work in the, pardon my voice, I'm getting over a cold, work in the undergraduate advising office in the Elliott School. Thinking about, I have just two comments, thinking about the staff experience. I've been at the university since 2010, and just having the opportunity to do the culture survey in and of itself, I think this was shared by our entire team, was encouraging because I don't think I've had that opportunity since I've been.
I was going to ask if this was your first time in 9 years.
It's the first I think it's the first.
So.
Yeah.
So it was.
So I think the rate of response to that survey was very high, is my understanding. So I think that just speaks volumes about that potentially there's some sort of pent up, feedback, and having that outlet, I think people saw as very valuable. And so I just want to sort of affirm those kinds of
Great.
Avenues and hope that they can continue. I think just having the opportunity to do the survey in and of itself, speaking for myself, helped me to feel more valued because I had an opportunity to speak about my experience. So that's one thing. The other thing that has been happening that I think has been good and hope can continue from the advising perspective and thinking about the student experience, I think there's more communication happening between advising and other parts of the administration at the university, whether it's the registrar's office or the office of the provost or student accounts. And I think particularly with the provost's office, the more communication and dialogue, the better, so that we can, continue to work on having a good understanding of the challenges that we're facing. I feel like there is an increased appreciation for the challenges that we do face in advising, and more of just a recognition of some of the things that we might need in order to serve students better. So I just appreciate that and hope it can continue.
Great. Good comments. I have to say, I was feeling pretty good when I found out you did the culture survey, because my last visit here, that was one of the things that, was suggested.
Well, and to your point, I mean, the response rate was really fantastic. Yeah. I mean, the Disney people who do this all the time were like, this response rate is really off the charts. I mean, really, I mean, fantastic. I think in all candor, some of the results from the survey were not uplifting. That we have some challenges in terms of how people feel about working here, how they feel about their ability to make decisions, what the consequences of getting things wrong are. I think to some of Steve's points, the level of conservatism that kind of creeps into different things. And I think there's a lot of work to be done. And, you know, culture's not an easy thing to transform quickly. I will say one thing, and I think I've experienced this with President LeBlanc on multiple occasions, and that is, if you point out to him something that makes absolutely no sense, he will fix it immediately. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Now, and I've been on the board for a long time, and I know that we like to create groups of people that go look at problems for a year before we make any decisions about what we're going to do about them. But just to give you one example, there were students in the Elliott School who wanted to double major in something else, but they couldn't double major in something like chemistry because they were getting BAs and it was a BS, and the whole level of complexity behind that. And Tom challenged the faculty to go fix it, and now you can get a BS from the Elliott School and double major in something else. So I think I would just encourage all of you, he does listen to these things, and when you find something that is just absolutely, just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, I've just watched him just fix it right in the room. And so just be encouraged to point those things out. I think he likes to fix those things fast.
One of the rare things new presidents get to do is take care of some of this, quote, low-hanging fruit, things that can be fixed. This is your big opportunity. If you know of something out there that you think could or should be fixed, just as Nelson just described, this is your big chance, because I don't know any new president who wouldn't take full advantage of that opportunity. Other comments? Other thoughts? Must be getting close to the lunch hour.
Questions?
They're getting even quieter. Yeah, questions for us? Anything that you're curious about that maybe we can answer for you? Steve, yeah. I know people get suspicious when strangers show up on campus. I don't feel like a stranger anymore, but I understand the suspicion. Yeah.
So you've laid out like the front half of the process, and so what's the back half, and is there going to be any feedback to the community?
Yeah. Well, I finished my work, and I will be writing up the results of my findings. In other words, what I've heard from all of the various people and groups that I'm speaking with. Nelson will have heard a good portion of this, so it's probably not going to be much of a surprise to him. But I will produce a written report. Because Tom's only been in office for 2 years, I don't think this is not going to be the Robert Mueller version of what's happening at GW, okay? This is probably going to be a fairly concise, I think I've told Nelson, somewhere between 2 and 10 pages is what I anticipate in terms of feedback and suggestions, and I will present it to Nelson.
So let me add to, so look, the primary audience for this report is the president. So we're trying to, this is about giving President LeBlanc feedback about how he's doing. All the things that you mentioned today are just important for him to know, and we'll make sure that any of those comments get collected, that he hears them. And so he's the primary audience. The board, of course, is going to get a report out, because we need to know what things he's planning to work on, where there are areas that we need to make improvements, in part because we need to support him in being able to do that. And then lastly, the audience is really all of you and all of us that participated in the process, to hear back what we said, so we make sure that it's what we said. And I think part of that is, so we'll kind of, in each of those cases, I think the level of feedback that Sally's going to give to Tom is going to be detailed. They're going to spend time and meet together and really understand. She'll spend some time with the board, but probably a little bit less, because we're not going to need to know all the details, but we need to know the big picture things. And then we'll produce something that we can send out to everybody on the campus to make sure that we give you feedback about what we heard from you, because part of being heard is having the other person tell you, this is what I heard you say. And so that's I think the end point on the process, which is going to be important. So, and again, this won't be your last chance. So,
This is an unusual level of transparency for a private institution, but it's one that I certainly applaud the board in particular for undertaking, and the president for his willingness to participate in something like this, and he welcomed this. I've not worked with a president who was as open and cooperative and welcoming of the process as Tom has been.
So just to give you a little history that's kind of fun, I started talking to Tom LeBlanc about this before he became president. And I said, I think it's an important ingredient in how we move forward. And he embraced it, and we put it in his contract. He actually said, I want it to be in my contract that this is something that happens, because he was just so open to it, which was really refreshing and made us feel better about hiring him as we were going through that process. But it was something we started talking about before he even set foot on campus.
Does that help?
Hi, I'm Helen Canaday, and I have been at the university for 35 years, and I'm a native Washingtonian. So this is my fourth president, and I will share that this is something, I thank you for doing this, and I was thinking about the comments, and I will share with you that, with any new president, there comes a sense of unsettledness, not sure what's on the horizon. There is a sense of fear. There's a sense of, I feel too here that there seems to be pockets of bureaucracy that still exist, pockets of fear, but there's also pockets of hope and people feeling good about what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. I think one comment that I shared too about seeing the president more around campus, getting to know, maybe listening tours. I'm not sure if he has done many of those. But I think listening tours might help, and also to kind of see the interaction between him and his senior leadership. I don't see as much of that as I have in some of the, well, I shouldn't say that. Trachtenberg showed more of that in the 4 presidents that I have seen. But I believe, too, that he's young. President LeBlanc is young in his tenure here. He's only, as you said, completing his 2nd year, so there's still time. But I think to see the dynamics between his senior leadership out and about with the staff and faculty, so that we understand a little bit about the relationships that exist, and hearing more from the senior leadership, I think, would be helpful. The second point, which I forgot, but I will think about it because I probably will come tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you. Your comments are well taken, and your description of institutions during presidential transitions is right on. So,
one of the things that we were nervous about, so Rice Hall is going to get torn down, and so we moved the president's office to the other side of campus, and one of the big dilemmas we had is that we moved it across the street from his house. So now his walk is going to be shorter, and that walk was an opportunity, I think, that we'll now have to replicate. So I'm going to tell him he has to walk to Rice Hall and then back to his office so that he encounters people along the way. And I started serving on the board when Steve Trachtenberg was here. And I do know what you're talking about in terms of, now I think it's great feedback to get him to engage more with people. I would never tell anybody to try to be Steve Trachtenberg. I think it's both impossible and maybe not desirable.
Okay, good advice. Last comment. I think we have time. Yeah, we certainly have time for one more.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Toby Davidow. I'm a double alum from the Graduate School of Education and Human Development with my master's and doctorate, and work full-time for about 18 years with the Presidential Fellowship. And I'm very grateful for this session as well. Mr. Carbonell, you actually hit on something I wanted to talk about, which is the symbolism on campus. And so not so much the visibility of administrators, but just how the campus dynamic is shifting from Rice Hall and I Street over to F Street. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great thing, and I'm really interested to see how the evolution continues. One thing I really do have to applaud too is the number of benches and a homey feeling I've seen as part of this campus evolution. I think it has come through from President LeBlanc's presidency. I know he has put in umbrellas at the Marvin Center, 3rd floor, so I'm sure he's responsible for the benches and the murals and just making the campus more homey. And I really hope he does continue to do that as well, to keep updating the campus, because I do think the traditions are important. With my presidential fellowship hat on as well, I'm so grateful on behalf of the program that he has adopted it. We're entering our 30th anniversary this year, and it's spanned over 3 presidents, and they have been great ambassadors for GW, and I hope there's going to be more opportunities for partnership.
Great.
Wonderful. Well, that's a very positive way to bring this to a conclusion. Anything else? Your last chance. Anyone want to bring us down? No.
And
good.
remember, we can. You're welcome to go online to
Yes.
Send us any additional feedback, anything that you thought that you comes to your mind as soon as you walk out the door, which happens to me often, or something that you just thought you'd want to take a little more time. So thanks to all of you for being here. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to make GW a better place. If we have a leader who cares about listening to everybody and getting feedback, I think we're